committee in the Senate, and Senator Crapo is agnostic on that, I assume. But I appreciate what we've been able to do on child tax credit in this committee, strengthening trade enforcement, as you said, protecting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, taking on the drug companies, PBMs, all that we've been able to do together. I'm so comfortable in this committee, I didn't wear a tie today in my last hearing. So thanks to all of you.
Canary is here.
Yeah, and my friend Ben Cardin and Marie, thank you for all of that. I'd like to share my frustration before questions, and I'm going to talk. I try to do questions more than talking today. I'm going to talk more than questions, but I do have one major kind of all-encompassing, I hope, question for both of you. But I want to share my frustration over what seems like an attempt to force these nominees through an expedited process before the end of the year. I want to echo the concerns shared by Ohio steelworkers, domestic companies like Cleveland-Cliffs, one of the largest steel companies, especially if they're successful in buying U.S. steel, will be one of the biggest steel companies in the world. Other stakeholders who are worried about the rush consideration. It's critical we take the time as a committee to thoroughly understand the way each of these nominees would engage as ITC commissioners and understand the philosophies that relates to ITC's role in enforcing anti-dumping and countervailing duty laws. As everyone here knows, the Commission plays a critical role in enforcing trade remedy laws. You both said that in your testimony, making sure American workers compete on a level playing field, the work that the Chairman and I have done together. ITC regularly receives petitions involving Ohio companies, Ohio workers. I understand just how important it is in the livelihood of steel workers in Cleveland, paper bag manufacturers in northern Kentucky, Whirlpool workers in Clyde, Ohio, and northwest part of the state, 10 mill workers across the Ohio River in Weirton, West Virginia. The ITC isn't just some quasi-judicial commission that exists, quote, to fulfill a range of trade-related matters to Ohio, mandates to Ohioans. Instead, workers in Ohio understand that ITC is the final decision maker when it comes to what's fair. These decisions are personal to Ohioans, and I think it's something you need to remember. These are individual people whose livelihoods depend on decisions you make here. And which communities maintain their economic vitality. I have seen in my state, in the city I grew up in, particularly, but everywhere, what bad trade policy has done, and to families and to communities as a whole. I go on to say there's probably no other member of the Senate in either party who's testified at the ITC and engaged with them more than I have. I agree with many of the stakeholders who've shared their concerns over the nature of today's hearing. These positions are too important to fast track. Thousands of workers in Ohio alone rely on you or the job that you are seeking to ensure a level playing field and protect their jobs against efforts by foreign exporters trying to evade U.S. trade laws. I just saw it in Weirton, West Virginia. Half those workers live in Belmont or Jefferson or Monroe County, Ohio, or close by, and lost their jobs. Well over, I believe, I think it was 300 initially. Now my question, when it comes to evaluating the merits of anti-dumping and countervailing duty cases, the job is to review the facts and apply the law. For years, I've worked to update our nation's anti-dumping and countervailing duty laws, first with Leveling the Playing Field Act, signed into law in 2015, most recently working with Senator Young, member of this committee, on Level the Playing Field 2.0 Act. Our bipartisan bill would further strengthen U.S. trade remedy laws to ensure they remain effective tools to fight back against unfair trade practices to protect American workers. Neither of you have experience with or expressed support for efforts to strengthen our existing laws. My understanding is that your role will not just be to apply the laws that exist, but to advise Congress, to advise this committee on ways legislation can help the ITC play a stronger role. I'd like to ask both of you today, convince me and my colleagues and the workers in our states who rely on AD/CVD process to address unfair trade. Convince us you'll strictly enforce the anti-dumping and countervailing duty laws, and convince us that you'll work productively with Congress on proposals to strengthen the ITC's capacity to go after serial cheaters. Ms. Craig, start with you, then Mr. Coughlin, you, and please answer those concerns. Ms. Craig.
Senator, thank you for raising a very important point. I also had the pleasure of working with you when I was a Senate Banking Committee staffer, so appreciate that. I know you were not here for my opening statement, but I come from a working class family in Pennsylvania, and I'm the proud granddaughter, great-granddaughter, and great-great-granddaughter of Philadelphia union workers, including roofers, including a machinist at Yarway, and I also, my great-great-grandfather on my father's side worked on the William Penn statue that actually adorns Philadelphia City Hall when he was at Tacony Iron and Steel Works. So for me, union work and hard work and blue-collar work is in my blood, and it's the reason that my family has been able to pursue the American dream, and it's the reason that I sit here today. I grew up going to job sites with my father, who was a house painter. He very wisely never let me paint, but I would help pick up scraps on the job sites. And so in my upbringing, I've connected deeply with people that are doing the jobs that often do come before the commission. As Mr. Coughlin and I discussed, and Ranking Member Crapo also brought up in his opening statement, one of the roles of a commissioner is also doing site visits with manufacturers that are going to be potentially impacted by a decision that the commission makes. I think that's very critical. It also factors into the understanding of the product that is in question, which can at times be very complex. And so seeing the manufacturing process firsthand, I think, is very important. In addition, we know, I don't think anyone in this room probably disagrees that China cheats in international trade. They are known for subsidizing their industries. They are known for selling at less than fair value. They also steal a lot of American IP and IP from other countries around the world. These laws were put in place by Congress, our anti-dumping laws, Section 201 and Section 337, by Congress to protect Americans that are being affected by those practices. And to the extent that those issues come before the commission, the role of the commissioner is to create a full docket of evidence, evaluate each case on the facts of the case, and rule fairly. And I think there's a reason why so many decisions have been unanimous at the ITC, regardless of the partisan split of the commissioners.
Thank you for the question, Senator. And I know from my research that you're a leader in this area. I also, by way of background, my family has always been a strong union family. My grandfather was in the Taylor Union in Chicago. My father and my mother were both in the Teachers Union in Chicago. As Ms. Craig said, and what we had discussed previously, is that when I used to work at the commission, it was very common for the commissioners to travel and to meet with industry leaders and labor leaders to understand things before cases are even filed, so that they have the practical knowledge that I think you're referring to, and not just sitting in an office somewhere reading a brief. So what I have indicated to your staff and to the committee is that I would welcome the opportunity to do that again, and to if invited, to come and travel and meet with labor leaders and business leaders and anyone who wants to sit down and talk to me and help me to understand better what the situation is, so that when complaints do come, I have a full understanding. And the other thing that I wanted to say to you, Senator, is like my North Star, so to speak, the guiding principle of coming back to the commission is to protect jobs and industries. That, to me, that's my #1 goal. That's why I'm coming back. I enjoyed doing that when I worked at the commission as a young lawyer, and having been in private practice and representing clients, you have to kind of, you have to advocate for your client, and so I would really relish the opportunity, if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed, to have that role and to take a leadership role in trying to level the playing field so that our industries can compete fairly, because I know they will win if they have that opportunity.
Mr. Coggan, you ever walked a picket line?
As a young boy, I did, sir, with my father as a teacher, but not as an adult. As an attorney, I was in the union when I was with the commission. I was with the Federal Employee Union, but otherwise, I've been a lawyer. So I did, as a young boy, with my dad when he was in the Chicago Teachers Union, and they were striking seemed like almost every other year. And I remember, like, my father, we would have to, I knew that they were on strike because we would have powdered milk instead of, regular milk, and my mom would start, the meals would change, and I knew and my grandma would come over, and because my dad wasn't getting paid. And, I could tell as a child, that things were changing based on sort of the
Does Craig ever walk the picket line?
No, Senator.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Chairman.
Colleagues, Senator Brown is making a very important point that there are additional questions that need to be reviewed here. We're going to have Senator Cantwell ask her questions in a moment, but I want to tell my colleague that I share so many of these concerns, and in fact, when Senator Cantwell is done, I'm going to be asking about, and I guess this gives you a heads up, Congress has given the ITC the authority to combat not only actual injury to U.S. interests, but the threat of injury. And this hasn't been used a whole lot. And I think what Senator Brown is saying is that there are issues here to be examined. I'm going to ask about that. And I just want to say to colleagues, based on what I've heard in the last 2 hours, I think our members have plenty to consider as the Finance Committee continues to review these nominees.